Hello, we're glad you could join us on today's program, The Dailies, where we keep you updated with some of the current happenings on the front page of the paper. I am Sela Laishadasham. I'll be doing this program alongside Rachel Tanzi. Good morning.
Morning, Sele.
All right, we will be running through the papers, starting with this Nation newspaper.
On the Nation newspaper, the first story, Jamb OK's under 16 whiz for 2025 UTME. 2 million likely to write exams. Atiku, Moke, Tambuwal meet Obasanjo in Abeokuta. You can find details on page 4. Kanu rejects judge again. Court adjourns case indefinitely. Cracking the legal tough knot of state creation. Cracking the legal tough knot of state recreation. You can find details on page 4 and you can continue on page 13 and 18. Dangote showed begin 3008 GT assembly in Kaduna. Nakan, no pilgrim will miss Hajj. You can find details on page 3. The big story, Supreme Court dismisses Fubara's appeal against 26 lawmakers. Appellant fined 4 million naira, ruling not against governor. A statement from the government. Amole predicts end to rascality. You can start with the details of this story on the front page. Illegal workers face ban in UK, and we have a Pebolo calls one witness closes case before tribunal. Action throws PDP, Igadalo into disarray. We have Palestinians won't return to Gaza. You can find this international story on page 3. Moody's US may slash injection to World Bank. And we have countdown begins to Alafin coronation. You can find details on page 5, and that's all the news on the Nation newspaper.
All right, let's take a look at New Telegraph newspaper. Mass housing, federal government launches private sector driven 100 billion naira facility with detail found in the paper. On Dangote, Peugeot begins 308 GT assembly in Kaduna. You can find that story on page 8. On 2025 Hajj, resolve visa concern, Shetima orders Nidcon. And Atiku is saying 2027 poll not part of my meeting with Obasanjo. You can read what was the meeting all about on page 2. 3.2 billion naira fraud, reps want EFCC ICPC to summon permanent secretaries regarding that. Hamas accuses Israel of ceasefire violation, delays next hostage release with detail found on page 4. Big story on the paper is regarding the issue in Rivers. Supreme Court dismisses Fubara suit against 27 pro-Wike lawmakers. The writer here says opposition reps kick, says pro-Fubara lawmaker Jumbo remains Rivers speaker. Supreme Court appeal withdrawal strategy, legally sound decision coming from Rivers government. Detail can be found on page 3, 5, 6, and 27. And we have MPF obeys court order to reinstate 92 retired officers as IGP1 officers against human rights violation. Swears Ude Okoye in as National Secretary PDP National Legal Advisor tells Damaku. JAM clears exceptional candidates below 16 to sit for UTME. Pandev to Tinubu non-asset to SSDC bill leaves South-South orphan and excluded. And then we have alleged treason, court adjourned Nnamdi Kanu's trial indefinitely. Downside of the paper, we have a study. Omega-3 fatty acid, vitamin D slows biological agent. So you can maybe look towards taking some of the supplements if you are looking forward to reducing aging. Detail can be found on page 29. We have the speeches story, New Telegraph award prestigious says Kanu governor. More data found on page 3, and that's all in New Telegraph newspaper.
On Daily Independent newspaper, the first story, Rivers crisis. Fubara didn't lose case at Supreme Court, opposition reps saying. Supreme Court reserves judgment on 4 appeals. CJN laments persistent corruption allegations biased against judiciary. The big story, Tinubu's $1 trillion economy target by 2030 still on course, federal government assures. Inaugurate presidential committee to drive economic inclusion. CBN awaits rebased GDP, shifts February MPC by 1 day. 3.2 billion naira infraction, reps asks AFCC, ICPC to probe ex-Labour Ministry permanent secretaries. You can find details on page 29. JAM cracks down on exam fraud, sanctions 6 CBT centers. Federal government reviews private varsities application fee to 25 million naira, halts fresh application. Lekki Epe Airport to be completed in 2 years, statement from the Lagos government. As aviation stakeholders tax fan to up its game. The last story here, lawmakers asked to stop Alia from selling Benue shares in Dangote Cement. Details can be found on page 6, and that's all the news on Daily Independent newspaper.
On the Daily Times newspaper, Justice Nyako resued self from Nnamdi Kanu's trial again. You can do well to read detail of this whole case on page 4. Group calls for solidarity protests against Shell Petroleum. Detail found on page 2. The big story in the paper, Atiku Tambuwal Amoke meets Obasanjo behind closed doors. Consultation for coalition ahead of 2027 on front burner, takes the ex-National Working Committee member. You can find out who that member is inside the paper. Rivers crisis, Supreme Court dismisses Fubara appeal, reserve judgment in 4 appeals. Africa set up secures $289 million in January 2025. National Assembly Commission Board tenure expires. You can find that detail on page 5. No Supreme Court ruling against Fubara Jumbo Steel Speaker. This is coming from the opposition. More detail found on page 2, and that's all on the Daily Times.
On the Matrix newspaper, Dangote Refinery targets full operating capacity in 1 month. From Lagos to NFL, Sanwo-Olu's Dabiri Hills Super Bowl winner Moro Jomo. You can find details on page 23. Ahead of 2027, tension in APC camp as opposition strategizes. Atiku Tambuwal, others meeting with Obasanjo, Arebesola Konkoso's packed rattle APC. Alongside, we have a picture story with this story strategizing for 2027, where we can see former Vice President Atiku Abubakar in a warm handshake with former President Olusegun Obasanjo during a meeting between both leaders at Obasanjo's home in Abeokuta. This happened yesterday. Still on the Matrix newspaper, Nnamdi Kanu challenges judge as court adjourns trial indefinitely. The big story is on Rivers crisis. Nyesom Wike, Fubara renew war of words. The writer says with withdrawal, Fubara has agreed he spent Rivers money illegally. Statement from Wike. Why we withdrew a bill that on-chains are celebrating. You can find details of this statement inside the paper, and he maintains Oko Jumbo remains Rivers' authentic speaker. Supreme Court ruling has affirmed Emele as authentic speaker. A statement from the lawyer. Details of this big story can be found on page 2. PDP legal advisors back Udo Okoye as national secretary. CBN announces new date for 299 February 2025 MPC meeting. Nigeria doesn't need more universities, JAMB Registrar Professor Oloyede is saying. We have an entertainment story. You can find details on page 21, and that's all the news on the Matrix newspaper.
On the Guardian newspaper, drama as Supreme Court dismisses Fubara's suit against pro-Wike lawmakers. I'm ready to serve Nigeria in any capacity, says the African Development Bank president. We will record that his tenure is almost over. So here he's ready to serve his father's land again. You can read more detail of that on page 3. IBEDC pledges to restore power to UCH in 48 hours. We will record that they have been blackout and patients have been vacating the hospital. So we are seeing here that the Minister of Power is promising that very soon power will be restored. So all fingers are crossed regarding that. The big story on the paper, stronger Naira unsettled FX market amid waiting dollar savings. And we're seeing how the Naira equivalent to the dollar have been from 899 Naira to presently 1,503. So you can do out read more detail of the implication of these in the paper. Court adjourned trial indefinitely as Kanu queries judge jurisdiction. Speculation mounts over 2027 as Atiku Obasanjo hold closed-door meeting. Women sexually violated or killed every 10 minutes in Nigeria, and that is why we have been advising that women should speak out if you're going through any form of sexual violation, any domestic violence, or anything of that form. Please do get the nearest police station closest to you and complain, and then I believe that from there they can pick it up and take you to a safe place where you will be kept. So you can do well to read more detail of the story on page 30. 800 ex-Boko Haram fighters undergoing re-radicalization, says the defense headquarters. Downside of the paper, PDP Ugodado calm in disarray, says APC as Okpebholo closes case at the tribunal. You can find more detail of this Edo tribunal on page 29, and that's all on the Guardian newspaper.
On Vanguard newspaper, the big story, hardship. Many governors desert states to live in Abuja. NLC lament. Frowns at proscription of unions in Kogi State. Commissions 10 CNG buses for workers. You can find details on page 4. We have a 2024 Vanguard Personality of the Year award, which is taking up most of the paper. Edo governorship poll, tribunal, PDP Asu Ugodalo camps in disarray as Okpebholo closes case. PDP crisis, legal advisors throw way behind Ude Okoye. States now mandate drug tests for appointees and employees. A statement from NDLEA. You can find details on page 8, and that's all the news on Vanguard newspaper.
Before we move to the next paper, the big story is actually got my attention, Rachel. The fact that many governors have actually deserted their states, and believe you me, Rachel, it's not because of the present hardship. For a while now, if you could ask indigents of various states, they will testify to you that most times their governors don't stay in the state. They are always in the FCT, or they are outside the country. And sometimes you just cannot help but wonder, what are you always doing outside the country? I mean, this is where your primary assignment is. So why are you in the FCT? Is it because of what is happening? So I believe that beyond hardship, even because of insecurity, we've had places in the north where you see that, crisis is ongoing, and then it will shock you to realize that the governor and even the deputy governor is not in the state presently when all of these things are happening. So how will you give directive? How will you lead when you are not presently in your state? And I think it actually calls for concern, and I hope that the House of Assemblies in the state level will actually call these governors that are always not found in their state to actually stay back home, address the issue that is happening, and don't always be on the, traveling left, right, and center. Not because they're looking for investors or bringing anything to the state, but just because you're trying to run away from your responsibility. I really think this calls for serious attention.
So I just took the words out of my mouth, because for something to happen, it was permitted, most especially in the government, in any administration, from the federal level down to the state level. For a governor to be away is because we have lawmakers at the state level permitting it, because it's expected that, there's a system, and if our system is functioning, then it means even as the governor, you are answerable to your House of Assembly. The same thing as a president. If you are absent, you are answerable to the Senate. You are answerable to your lawmakers. But we see a system where everybody is silent, where people are bored, where people are, you just don't know where their loyalty lies. Is it to an individual, or is it to a country? Because your loyalty should be to Nigeria. Exactly. The same thing, your loyalty should not be, I'm using Governor Mutfang, I didn't hear anything whether he's out of the state or not. Your loyalty is not to Governor Mutfang, but to the people of Plateau. So as lawmakers at the state level, for example, if your governor is consistently absent, it is your fault. It's nobody's fault because you are supposed to call him.
order.
Because you do have the power when he misbehaves to ask him questions. You even have the power to say we don't want you anymore as a governor. But I think we already have this mindset where we just allow people, you know what, let him misbehave for 4 years, and guess what, we'll give him another 4 years to keep misbehaving. And that's why we'll see administration come and go, administrations of governors not doing anything to better the lives of their people, and administration of just, you know, building one flyover bridge and we move, and you say you've done something for 8 good years, nothing will come to your people. We saw that with the past presidential administration, where we had a president that was very much absent for long periods of time consistently, and nothing was said or done about it. I mean, when you see such excesses at the federal level, what do you think at the state level? Such will go on and nobody will speak up or talk about it, because then it will be, well, if we are having this going on there, my own is not even that bad, so why are you complaining about it and all of that? Because we have allowed, you know, work that is supposed to be taken seriously not to be taken seriously. So for every state in Nigeria, if we have that is the attitude of a governor, I think it's because we have people that have allowed it, yes, to happen in the first place. And what you fail to understand is that government comes and go, but you see, these states remain, and it needs to grow and develop regardless of who is the current administration. But when you let it pass, you see, it doesn't matter, at most 8 years, but the state will keep growing older with no development and anything to show for it, because you kept quiet, because your loyalty was directed to the wrong place. Instead of a state, you are loyal to a governor, and he's not doing his job, and you're not questioning him and all of that. I just hope that we do wake up and do our job as expected at every level that you find yourself. If you are the one with the responsibility of making sure taxing people to be accountable, then you do it diligently, because at the end of the day, it's not just about you, what you stand to gain, or the other person, but I think the entire state, the entire organization, the entire community, at whatever level you are.
So I believe that indigents did not vote for absent government at any point. We didn't vote for an absent president, neither did we vote for an absent House of Reps or Senate or even the governor. We actually want people who are present, you know, even in a place of work. I mean, when your boss is, there's just the way things are organized, because he's present. He mustn't say anything. So we could actually tell how it will even impact our country. So we'll keep our fingers crossed, hoping that our lawmakers will hold all of our leaders accountable for that. Let's take a look at the Punch newspaper. Hospitals groan over debt as federal government 50% power subsidy delays. You can find detail of that story on page 29. Still on the Punch newspaper, 800 surrendered Boko Haram militant undergoing de-radicalization, coming from the defense headquarters. Court adjourns indefinitely as Kanu demand case transferred to the southeast. Regarding varsity admission, JAM said 320 UTME benchmark for under 16 candidates. So if you have proven that you are intelligent, according to JAM, you must score 320 points. So let's keep our fingers crossed and see what will be the JAM score for this year. The big story here on 2027, Obasanjo Atiku others meeting, no threat, says APC. Ruling party on first as Labour Party and NPP divided over possible Atiku-Obasanjo collaboration ahead of the next election. Downside of the paper, why Rivers withdraws Supreme Court appealed against pro-Wike lawmakers coming from Fubara. Uber driver killed body dump on Lagos Road. This is a sad one. You can find that story on page 4 and 6. On Edo Tribunal, where we have Okpebholo closes defense as lone weakness admits overvoting. More detail found on page 18. We have the picture story. This was when the medical students of the University of Ibadan were protesting over the 100 days of blackout during the meeting between the Minister of Power and the management of the UCH in Ibadan on Monday. You can see the picture story and the student protester. We hope that just as the Minister of Power has promised, that in less than 48 hours we should see power being restored. So fingers are crossed. we look forward to seeing that being done. And that's all on the Punch newspaper.
On Blueprint newspaper, INEC to sack Adamawa Reg. Prove your innocence in court. 4% customs levy negates Tinubu's tax reforms. Head of AFCON 2025 Super Eagles among title contenders, Leroy is saying. The big story on Blueprint, Supreme Court dismisses Fubara's appeal. Amole-led Rivers Assembly remains. Reserves judgment in 4 other appeals. No judgment against Fubara. Statement from RVSG. Oko Jumbo still in charge, says Reps Group. Assent to South-South Development Commission Bill, Pandev begs Tinubu. You can find details on page 8. My visit to Obasanjo, North about 2027, Atiku is clarifying. Federal government announces 100 billion naira Series 2 subscription. And we have NCDC confirms over 24,000 diphtheria cases. And we have a story on Biafra. You can find details inside the paper, and that's all the news on Blueprint newspaper.
All right, let's take a look at another paper, which is the Leadership newspaper. On the Leadership, why I visited Obasanjo in Abeokuta, coming from Atiku, we're seeing that the papers have been capturing. He said that his visit was not regarding the 2027 election. So you want to know why he visited the former president, you can do well to read that on page 4. Nasarawa poised for greater success, coming from the AG, more detailed on page 26. Trending on the paper, federal government unveils plan to develop diaspora city. On numbers, more than 70% of Lagos residents are tenants. You can find detail of those stories on page 2. Analysts project 15% inflation as the MBC holds February 18, where we'll be looking forward to seeing what will be the new monetary policy as they actually have their meeting. Alleged terrorism, Nnamdi Kanu questions court jurisdiction. The big story, which we've seen on most of the papers, still talking about what happened regarding the 27 Rivers lawmakers. You can do well to look that story up on page 4. Pressure mount on Damakum to Suez in Ude Okoye as party scribe. This is coming from the PDP. INEC to sack REC, prove your innocence in court. Court registrar demoted over illegal transaction. JAM registered 420,674 candidates for UTME. More detail found on page 7, and that is all on the Leadership newspaper.
On Nigerian Tribune, power outage. What federal government, UCH, IBEDC resolved to do. Students protest as minister visits. We have Areolo Tan's column, discourse and returns. You can find details of this, which will be every Thursday on Nigerian Tribune. Atiku Tambuwa orders visit to Obasanjo sparks fresh debate. I wasn't at Obasanjo's house because of 2027, Atiku is saying. I won't talk about 2027, Obasanjo is saying that. You can find details of their statement on page 15. NDLEA declares 4 members of Barisan's drug cartel wanted over cocaine shipment to Saudi Arabia and Qatar. Oba Uwade sets up 97-member coronation committee. Nnamdi Kanu challenges Justice Iyako's jurisdiction to try him. Court adjourns indefinitely. NRC APM terminals relaunch. Lagos Ibadan cargo train moved 35 containers. Supreme Court reserves judgment in 4 appeals on Rivers political crisis. The writer says Fubara's appeal over 2024 budget dismissed after council withdrew case. Relocate NLNG plants to Niger Delta. Pandev tells the federal government. Wants Tinubu to sign South-South Development Commission bill into law. We have a picture story. From left, we can see Senator Abdul Ningi, former Vice President Atiku Abubakar, former President Olusegun Obasanjo, former Governor Liel Moke of Cross River State, and former Governor of Sokoto State, Senator Aminu Tambuwal, when Atiku led others to a closed-door meeting with Obasanjo at his residence in Abeokuta, the Ogun State capital, yesterday, and that's all the news on Nigerian Tribune.
Before we continue further with the paper review, let's take a time out. When we come back, we will continue the paper review. Please stay tuned with us.
Make your everyday informative, make your everyday count. Know your world, daily affairs, national and international, with authentic news events as they unfold on Global News and Zuma Nigeria, Monday to Friday at 1 p.m.
Welcome back, but if you're just tuning in, the program is the Dailies, your morning program where we go through various stories that are making it around on the papers. Now, most especially the story we've been seeing is regarding the the rivers crisis regarding the 27 pro-wiki lawmakers, where we see that the case have been withdrawn, and we've seen that Fulbright is giving reasons why they actually withdrew their case. As well, we are seeing the visit of Atiku to the former president, where he said that his visit has nothing to do with the 2027 election. So you can do well to go through the papers and see why did he lead others to actually meet the former president. There you get your answers. And then as well, we're seeing the issue of the blackout that have been there for over 100 days in UCH. So you can do well to go through the papers, where the power minister has promised that power will be restored in less than 48 hours. So all fingers are crossed regarding that. I still have Rachel with me. Thank you so much, Rachel.
You're welcome, Celia.
All right, we will continue looking at the paper review, looking at Nigerian News Direct. 100-day power outage, IBEDC, UCH seal agreement to restore power following Adilibu's intervention. NUC moves to improve quality of private varsities, review application fees to 25 million naira. You can find both stories on page 13 and on page 3. Oyo hospitality sector gains over 10,800 new investment in 6 years. You can read more detail of that investment on page 13. Access Holding launches Access Gift to honor Wigwin's legacy. Sack local government chairman, Osun government, APC differ on appeal court judgment. Governor Fulbright saying why I withdrew my appeal against Amawode. You can find detail of that on page 3. Mixed reaction as Atiku, Tamwal and others made Obasanjo. That's a picture story we can see over there, and that's all on Nigerian News Direct.
On First News newspaper, the first story, El Rufai on Tinubu rift. We've moved on, but they can't sleep. Shatima is saying Tinubu's economic reform key to $1 trillion GDP by 2030. Japa crisis, one doctor now treats 1,300 cancer patients, a report from the NCS. Federal government raises new private university application fee from 5 million naira to 25 million naira. I believe this is in a bid to also reduce the number of new private universities. My wife sent nude photos to other men, gospel singer Paul Nwokocha is saying. The big story on First News, Supreme Court ruling on Omoyele's leadership irrelevant, a statement from Fubara, mocks opponents for celebrating academic judgment. Lagos targets 8,500 megawatt power boost to drive industrial growth. Tension as Nnamdi Kanu rejects judge, trial stalls again. Atiku is saying my visit to Obasanjo not political. We have a picture story where we can see Governor Dapo Abiodun with Semari's representatives and the French Embassy's regional agriculture councillor during a strategic meeting at Bekuta on establishing ranching facilities for hygienic meat processing in Ogun State. And that's all the news on First News newspaper.
On Platform Times newspaper, El-Rufai is saying our support for Tinubu was not for personal gain. My visit to Obasanjo not politically motivated, coming from Atiku. Federal government should allow NUC manage university budget. This is coming from JAM Registrar, and this is a back and forth that has been going on for a very long time regarding whether the government should actually allow university to manage the funds that is being released to them. Edo lawmaker slam police reveals ransom paid for monarch's release. Kaduna Pijot commences 3008 GT assembly in Kaduna. The big story coming from Defense Headquarters, 800 ex-Boko Haram fighters undergoing de-radicalization. Sharia panels in Southwest necessary for suitable peace. This is coming from Oloyede. One doctor attending to over 1,800 cancer patients, Nigeria Center Society is warning and they need to have more specialty and consultants when it comes to cancer. We celebrated the World Cancer Day last week. Supreme Court dismisses Fubara suit against 27 pro-Wike Rivers lawmakers. CUPP takes Abiodun to court over alleged dehumanization of civil servants. Army arrests 29 suspected oil thieves to recover over 60,000 liters of stolen crude oil. More detail can be found in the paper, and that's all on Platform Times newspaper.
On Punch Sport Extra, the big story back and better. Ojuke ahead Yamal Vini among La Liga successful dribblers, number 4 in Europe's top 5 leagues. Newcastle to battle Chelsea for Siemens summer. Lookman on Juventus radar. Field move won't affect Boniface, a statement from Alonso. Citizens host Los Blancos in crunch knockout tie. Saka nears return from injury. United won against hiring Rooney. Greenwood matches Drogba's a Marcel record. You can find details on page 3. We have La Liga race. We don't care about others, says Flick. We have Joshua not ready for return, a statement from Chisora. You can find details on page 2. And we have Ogumabade wants Renault players against complacency. You can find details on page 8, and that's all the news on Punch Sport Extra.
On Business Day newspaper, new electricity tariffs seeing shocking consumers. As we're seeing what the reflection will be, the human cost of the tariff hike and all of that. You can do well to read more detail of its implication in the paper. Soaring seed cost price farmers out of bumper harvest. Soaring seed cost price farmers out of bumper harvest, as we're seeing that seeds are getting very, very expensive. There was a time you could actually get some of the seeds for as low as even 500 naira, 200 naira, depending on the seed you're buying. But right now we're seeing that the reverse is the case. You can do well to find what the prices are just in case you're looking forward to being a farmer or going into farming business this year. Uwandu 30 years fueling Africa's energy ambitions. You can find that story inside the paper, and that's all on Business Day newspaper.
On the Matrix Sport, Man City versus Real Madrid, Guardiola plays down Ballon d'Or rift. Relief for Finidi as Rivers end 5-game winless run. From Lagos to NFL, Sanwo-Olu Dabiri hails Super Bowl winner Moro Jomo. The Tigress camp opens today ahead crucial Afro-Basket qualifiers, and that's all the news on the Matrix Sport.
Alright, let's take a look at this Nigerian newspaper where we have blank registration, JAM sanction 6 CBT centers. You can find out why on page 16. 3-man assembly, Supreme Court dismisses Fubara's appeal. Amawadi, 26 lawmakers rewarded 2 million naira as costs against petitioners. Why we withdrew, coming from Rivers government, court discontinuance withdrawal. That's why case was dismissed with cause. You can find detail of all this in the paper. Most governors live permanently in Abuja. NLC kicks. You can find that story on page 6. Edu Governorship Tribunal Okpebholo opens closed case with one weakness. Pandef asks Tinubu to sign South-South Development Commission bill. Seek appointment of Niger Delta indigene as NNPCL GMD, as we see that Kyari will soon be stepping down. More detail can be found on page 5, and that's all on this day, on this Nigeria rather, as well as how far we can go on the program this morning. So thank you so much for tuning in. We look forward again to doing this together tomorrow. Do have a lovely day ahead.